Two rusting submarines currently sit in a nature reserve in Scotland. They're surrounded by bird watchers, dog walkers, families on quiet weekend walks, and twice a day, every single day, the tide pulls back and reveals them completely. Steel hulls, open hatches, sitting in the mud like they were dropped there yesterday. But they've actually been there since 1946. And here's the thing, nobody walking past them on a Sunday afternoon really knows what they were built to do. But before we continue, I genuinely want to know, where in the world are you watching this from? Have you ever stumbled across something like this on a walk, somewhere that felt completely ordinary, until you realised what you were actually looking at? I really want to know. This is Aberlady Bay, on the coast of East Lothian, just outside Edinburgh. Today, it's a protected nature reserve. Wading birds, dune grass, families on bicycles, dog walkers cutting across the sand at low tide. It's the kind of place you'd visit for a quiet afternoon and nothing more, but sitting in the tidal mud, half buried, completely ignored by most of the people walking past, are two submarines. Now, here is what most people do not know. These aren't ordinary submarines, they're Midget submarines, tiny four-man vessels built for one of the strangest and most dangerous jobs in the entire Royal Navy. During the Second World War, Britain developed a class of submarines called X-craft, 52 feet long, about 5 feet in diameter. The interior was barely big enough for the crew to crouch, 5'8" high, 5 feet wide, barely 8 feet of usable space inside, 4 men. No torpedoes in the traditional sense, just a pair of explosive charges strapped beneath the hull, designed to be released directly under an enemy ship. The mission was simple to describe and almost impossible to survive. Sneak a tiny submarine completely undetected into a heavily defended harbour. Get directly underneath an enemy warship. Drop the charges. Get out before they detonate. Now picture how small that margin actually was. These submarines had no real weapons to defend themselves. If they were spotted, there was no fighting their way out. Survival depended entirely on never being seen in the first place. The most famous operation using these submarines targeted the German battleship Tirpitz, hidden deep inside a Norwegian fjord in 1943. The Tirpitz was one of the most powerful warships in the world, and the Royal Navy considered it such a serious threat that conventional attacks weren't getting the job done. So 6 X-craft set out on Operation Source, towed most of the way by larger submarines, then cut loose to creep the final stretch alone. 6 boats went in. Only 2 actually made it to the target. They navigated minefields, anti-submarine nets, and patrol boats, moving at a crawl to avoid detection. Once underneath the Tirpitz, they released their charges and tried to escape. The explosions severely damaged the battleship, buckled hull plates, knocked out turbines, put the ship out of action for months. For a vessel that size, that was a significant tactical victory, and it was achieved by submarines barely larger than a family car. And here's the detail that's genuinely hard to get your head around. These 2 submarines sitting in Scotland were never part of that mission. They weren't the operational boats, they were training vessels. Before any crew was sent into a fjord to slide beneath an enemy battleship, they had to learn how to do exactly that, somewhere that wouldn't get them killed first. The Firth of Forth, with its shifting tides, narrow channels and shallow water, became the practice ground. Crews trained here again and again, rehearsing the precise manoeuvres they'd need in Norway, approaching slowly, holding position beneath a hull, releasing charges without being detected. These 2 submarines never crossed a minefield, never slipped past an enemy patrol, never carried a live charge toward a real target. Their entire purpose was rehearsal, preparing other men for a mission these specific boats would never take part in. Now here is what happened after the war ended. The operational X-craft, the real ones, the ones that actually slid into enemy harbours and placed charges beneath warships, almost all of those are gone, scrapped for parts, lost to time, forgotten in naval records nobody kept properly, because the program itself was kept secret for years. The boats that mattered most to the war effort simply didn't survive into peacetime. but the training boats, the ones that never saw a single moment of actual combat, were just left behind in the bay where they'd practiced. Nobody made a dramatic decision to preserve them. Nobody decided this would become a memorial site or a museum or anything official at all. The war ended. The training program had no further use for two beaten up practice submarines. Towing them away, scrapping them properly, doing anything with them at all simply wasn't worth the cost or the effort compared to everything else that needed cleaning up after a global war. So they stayed exactly where they were last used. And here's the detail that stays with me. The submarines that risked everything, that actually crept beneath the tirpitz under threat of discovery, that carried out one of the most daring small vessel operations of the entire war, were essentially gone from the world, scrapped decades ago, no trace left to visit. But the boats that never did anything except practice, the safest and least dramatic version of this entire story, are the ones still here today, visible twice a day, exactly where the tide left them since 1946. That's the part of this story I find genuinely strange. The submarines that mattered most, historically, didn't survive. The submarines that mattered least, in terms of what they actually accomplished, are the ones you can stand next to right now, on an ordinary Tuesday, while a dog runs past you on the sand. I think that says something true about how history actually gets preserved. It's rarely the most important objects that survive. It's the ones nobody thought were worth the effort to remove. The Tirpitz raid is in the history books, told through documents, photographs, survivor accounts, but there's nothing physical left of it to stand in front of. Meanwhile, two practice submarines that did nothing except teach men how to be brave somewhere else entirely have outlasted everything they were built to prepare for. There's something almost backwards about that. The mission succeeded because of training that happened in this exact bay, and the training equipment outlived the mission itself by nearly 80 years and counting. Today, Aberlady Bay is protected as a local nature reserve. Most of the people who walk past these submarines at low tide aren't there for them at all. They're watching for wading birds, walking dogs, getting some air. The submarines have become part of the landscape, half noticed, the way old things tend to become once enough time passes that nobody questions why they're there anymore. But if you stop and actually look at them, really look, you're looking at the only physical remnant of one of the most secretive and dangerous programs the Royal Navy ever ran. 4 men at a time, training in water this cold, this shallow, this unforgiving, to prepare for a mission where there was no room for error and almost no way to fight back if they were caught. So that's where they sit. Aberlady Bay, East Lothian. A nature reserve full of birds and quiet walking paths. And twice a day, the tide pulls back and two training submarines from a mission that almost didn't work surface from the sand, exactly the way they have since 1946. If you want to see more stories like this, let me know in the comments. There are plenty more ships the world forgot.